Hello everyone. Still hanging in there, I hope. I appreciate you looking at these videos. And I hope you can appreciate that I'm making them and that I've also made your final optional. I have, sorry, I'm getting some text. I have also given you the option of revising the other two major pieces of writing in lieu of doing the final to revise your grade. So in other words, if you didn't like your grade on the midterm, option A, I would say, is just keep working on it. Look at my comments. I emailed everyone who sent me a midterm. I emailed you comments and a grade. Use my comments to improve it. If you're bored with that and just want the challenge of doing the questions about the final, you can do them instead of doing that, and it will replace the grade. Okay, and I will make that available by the end of the week. I'll put it on Blackboard and I'll send it out. I'll send out the questions. Part of what you can do for the final is also submit a poem again. And yeah, I'm not trying to confuse anyone or make this more difficult than it needs to be. I hope you can see that I'm trying to be helpful and understanding in the current extraordinary situation that we find ourselves in as a society. Alrighty, so today I'm going to talk to you about Etheridge Knight, and then in a second video we'll discuss the poets June Jordan and Lucille Clifton. Next week we'll look at Ishmael Reed and Nikki Giovanni, and we'll on Wednesday we'll watch a film, and I will make the film available on Blackboard hopefully, but if not, you'll have to rent it off a streaming service. It's called They Live. And what I'm gonna do is record a video that's like me watching the film and giving you a commentary, so you can watch it with you can watch the film on your own, and then you can watch it with the sound off and listen to me rant about it. And I might try to enlist a couple friends via Skype or something to help me make the commentary track. In any case, it's a great action film from the 80s called They Live. Really great movie that I think you'll enjoy. Most students end up finding it pretty entertaining, if not trenchant, incisive, insightful political commentary on America. Okay, the basic premise is that this working class guy discovers that the rich are all aliens from another planet who are disguising themselves as humans and enslaving us. It's sort of conspiratorial, but at a figurative, metaphorical level, has a lot of purchase, and I buy the premise. Okay, makes the class struggle into a science fiction alien invasion, but the class struggle that he discovers is a real thing. All right, Etheridge Knight was a great poet of the heart and the belly and the guts and the feelings of being a black man in America. He became a poet after being imprisoned for armed robbery. He served an 8-year sentence, and he wrote poetry there. It really kind of kept him going, kept him alive, and that was his first book. It's called Poems from Prison, and it was published by Broadside Press, by the same the guy Dudley Randall who edited this book, who collected all the poems in this book, by his press. Okay, and that's what you're seeing here in the poems by Knight are poems from that early book. He went on to write a number of other books. He married the poet we discussed last time, Sonia Sanchez, who, they had a rocky time of it because he was also, thanks to his service in the military during the Korean War. So when he was about 19, 20 years old, he was injured there and he got addicted to morphine, and he struggled with drug addiction, with addiction to opiates for a long time after that. Okay? Part of why he was robbing things and went to prison. And it's not unusual to it's not, I wouldn't say it's normal, but it's definitely not unusual that black men from the working class in America, not from the sort of middle class, educated families, it's not unusual for them to basically have prison serve as a sort of like college education environment. For example, very famously, Malcolm X, converted to Islam, and particularly to the cultish, unofficial branch of it called the Nation of Islam, founded by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That while he was in prison, Malcolm X educated himself there. So Etheridge Knight did something similar, but more as a poet and less as a political organizer. But then another great political figure, literary figure, a guy named George Jackson, who's also in jail. And again, this book came out in 1968, in jail in the late 60s, and becomes radicalized to the Black Panther Party and is murdered by the police, but wrote a series of beautiful, beautiful letters and essays that are collected in a book called Soledad Brother. Soledad is a town in the kind of central valley of California, that's also where there's a penitentiary, and that's where George Jackson was incarcerated and where he died. Alrighty, so what am I saying about what's the point of bringing that up, the prison thing, besides the biographical? Well, you see in it, you see a sort of tale in miniature, sort of a microcosm of the journey of black people in America, the journey from oppression, suffering because of poverty, because of racism, and then in your darkest hour, when you're imprisoned, persevering and using that to, have a rebirth, a spiritual awakening through education and self-fashioning. All right, and it's says a lot about the resilience, the strength, the character of people like Etheridge Knight. That prison didn't break him, prison made him into a visionary author. So let's look at this very, very famous poem written and all of these are written while in prison, poems for prison, but this one really kind of speaks to the experience, the daily life of a prisoner in this time period in the middle and late 1960s. I'm on page 203 in the book, and this is the idea of ancestry. Taped to the wall of my cell are 47 pictures, 47 black faces. My father, mother, grandmothers, one dead, grandfathers, both dead. Telling that they are both dead. Brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, cousins, first and second, nieces and nephews. What a big, beautiful, crazy family he must have. They stare across the space at me, sprawling on my bunk. I know their dark eyes. They know mine. I know their style. They know mine. I am all of them. They are all of me. They are farmers. I am a thief. I am me, they are thee. And thee is, meant in two senses there, like they are you, as if he's writing to them, as is like almost like a letter, what we'd call an epistle, or but also they are thee, like thee being like they, like almost a slang for they. I have one time or another been in love with my mother, one grandmother, two sisters, two aunts. I went to the asylum, and one went to the asylum, and 5 cousins. He's got a big heart, huh? Loving all those people. I am now in love with a 7-year-old niece. She sends me letters written in large block print, and her picture is the only one that smiles at me. I have the same name as one grandfather, 3 cousins, 3 nephews, and 1 uncle. I mean, you see how in their absence, he draws strength from the memory of them. The uncle disappeared when he was 15, just took off and caught a freight, they say. He's discussed each year when the family has a reunion. He causes uneasiness in the clan. He is an empty space. My father's mother, who is 93, and who keeps the family Bible with everybody's birth dates and death dates in it, always mentions him. There is no place in her Bible for whereabouts unknown. As if they are, even when they're not together, they keep track of each other. They have a strong kinship network. They give what Marxist leftists call mutual aid, even if it's only spiritual, as in his current case where they can't be near him so much. Part 2, I'm on the next page now, 204. Each fall, the graves of my grandfathers call me. The brown hills and red gullies of Mississippi send out their electric messages, galvanizing my genes. Last year, like a salmon quitting the cold ocean, leaping and bucking up his birth stream, I hitchhiked from LA with 16 caps in my pocket and a monkey on my back. He's going to the family reunion, caps like he's got drugs with him. And I almost kicked it with the kinfolks, meaning I almost kicked his habit, his addiction. I walked barefoot in my grandmother's backyard. I smelled the old lands in the woods. I sipped corn whiskey from fruit jars with the men. I flirted with the women. I had a ball till the caps ran out and my habit came down. That night I looked at my grandmother and spilt my guts screaming for junk, but I was almost contented. I had almost caught up with me. What a great line. I had almost caught up with me. The next day in Memphis, I cracked a croaker's crib for a fix. He goes back to his petty crimes to find drugs. And you see the confessional mode here, the kind of bad boy, dangerous vibe. Did this really happen? Like a lot of events in his life, it's hard to pin them down. His one official biography, all these holes have been poked in it by his family's different accounts of things. So he was consciously kind of making the myth of himself, making himself into a kind of bad boy. This year there is a gray stone wall damming my stream, and when the falling leaves stir my jeans, I pace my cell or flop on my bunk and stare at the 47 black faces across the space. I am all of them. They are all of me. I am me. They are thee. And I have no suns to float in the space between. So you see, he repeats that line, I am me and they are thee, but then he kind of ends on this note that he is not, as, is such a human wish, a human need he is not added to the family just yet. Wonderful, melancholy, urgent, honest poem. Just a beautiful poem. The idea of ancestry. Not the reality of it, not the fact of it, but the idea of it. I think that's crucial that he calls it the idea. Let's look at another poem of his. This one's a little more lighthearted, and then we'll look at the haiku one. But skip to 209. I like this one. I sing of shine, and he refers here to a movie. A movie that came out in 1964. I'm not sure. Maybe he saw it in prison. Maybe they had a screening or something. This musical called "The Unsinkable Molly Brown." Molly Brown was this famous rich American socialite who was on the Titanic when it sank, escaped in one of the lifeboats, and then pleaded with the people running the lifeboat to go back and look for survivors, and they refused. And she kind of, through the movie, she was, mythologized as this heroic figure. And you see, he has a different take on the events of the Titanic. And it's so, it's really, it's humorous, it's dark, it's, again, as I've been saying all along, imagine American culture without Black experience and Black people's contributions to our culture. We wouldn't have, it would be pretty inferior. Instead, we have the greatest popular music traditions in the world because of Black people. Okay, and poetry is part of that. All right, so look at this. I sing of shine instead of Molly Brown. He's going to tell you about the cook in the back room on the Titanic, not the rich person who gets all this credit for something that didn't actually happen. They didn't go back and save people. All right, so, and yeah, brothers, while white America sings about the unsinkable Molly Brown, who was hustling the Titanic when it went down, I sing of thee, to thee of shine, the stoker, who was hip enough to flee the fucking ship and let the white folks drown, and scream with screams on their lips. Jumping his black ass in the dark sea, shine did, broke free from the straining steel. Yeah, I sing of shine, and how the millionaire banker stood on the deck and pulled from his pocket $1 million check, saying, shine, shine, save poor me, and I'll give you all the money a Black boy needs. How shine looked at the money and then at the sea and said, jump in, motherfucker, and swim like me. and shine swam on. Shine swam on. How the banker's daughter ran naked on the deck with her pink tits trembling and her pants round her neck, screaming, shine, shine, save poor me, and I'll give you all the cunt a Black boy needs. How Shine said, now cunt is good and that's no jive, but you got to swim, not fuck, to stay alive. Then Shine swam past a preacher afloat on a boat crying, save me, nigger, Shine, in the name of the load. How the preacher grabbed Shine's arm and broke his stroke. How Shine pulled his shank and cut the preacher's throat. And Shine swam on all alone. And when the news hit shore that the Titanic had sunk, Shine was in Harlem, damn near drunk, and dancing in the streets, yeah, damn near drunk and dancing in the streets. What a wonderful, kind of playful fantasy poem. And you see it has that kind of like fairy tale structure of like encountering 3 successive options, right? Like kind of like gold, the banker, and he says, no. The pretty banker's daughter, no. The preacher, oh, definitely not, I'll kill this one. And then he's free. Very funny, very playful, but also violent and dark poem. And I hope you're seeing the humor in a lot of these. Let's look at a couple more here on page 206. Haiku. Eastern Guard Tower. glints. And sorry, just about a haiku. A haiku is a Japanese poetic form where they're short. It's a 3-line poem. Excuse me. A 3-line poem. 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. And it's supposed to kind of have a concrete image of something that then suggests something more spiritual or mystical beyond the concrete. And you see what he's done here in haiku is he's created what we'd call a sequence of them. So there's not just one, there's 9 of them in total. And these Eastern forms, you know, they've came into American and European literary discourse long ago, really 200, 300 years ago, but especially in the 20th century and modernism, it became a kind of alternative to you know, Western poetic traditions. Haiku 1. Eastern guard tower glints in sunset. Convicts rest like lizards on rocks. Beautiful, the enjambment there that the line runs over, or the sentence runs over the line, and that's true in most of these. The piano man is sting at 3 a.m. His songs drop like plum. 3. Morning sun slants cell. Drunks stagger like cripple flies on jailhouse floor. 4. To write a blues song is to regiment riots and pluck gems from graves. 5. A bare pecan tree slips a pencil shadow down a moonlit snow slope. 6. The falling snowflakes cannot blunt the heartaches nor match the stillness. 7. Under moon shadows, a small boy flashes knife and slices star bright ice. 8. In August grass struck by the last rays of sun, the cracked teacup screams. And 9. Making jazz swing in 17 syllables ain't no square poet's job. And you see him compare there in the end his practice. Excuse me. Oh yeah, I'm trying not to drink coffee because my stomach's been upset for days, but it's catching up with me right now. You see in the last line there, he's consciously comparing his writing to music, jazz and swing, and what's a square poet? Well, to put it really simply, a white poet who went to a fancy school and dresses nicely and, you know, is highly educated, but square. They're not, it's the opposite would be cool. They're not cool, they're a dork, they're a nerd, okay? And their poetry doesn't swing. It doesn't have feeling. It doesn't have soul. All these words, it doesn't speak of the experiences, as he mentions in another part of the poem, the blues. And he has a point, I think. All right. And then one last poem here on 207, right after this is a short one here. It was a funky deal. This is a poem written for the death of Malcolm X, who was such a towering figure in American culture, especially in Black America. And his death led to the first book that Broadside, Dudley Randall's publishing house, ever published, Poems for Malcolm. It was an anthology of poems in which all the different poets who wrote something all wrote in tribute to Malcolm, and this is one of those poems. It was a funky deal. It was a funky deal. The only thing real was red. red blood around his red beard. It was a funky deal. In the beginning was the Word, and in the end, the deed. Judas did it to Jesus for the same herd, same reason. You made them mad, Malcolm. Same reason. It was a funky deal. You rocked too many boats, man. Pulled too many coats, man. Saw through the jive. You reached the wild guys like me, you and Bird, and that little Leroy cat. It was a funky deal. And he's talking about the assassination of Malcolm X, which is still an ongoing question: who did that and what were their connections? You know, these people who went to jail. There's a Netflix series about this right now, which I started watching, but it was irritating to me. Malcolm X was part of the Nation of Islam, but then he broke with them, and he broke with them over allegations of, basically sexual exploitation by the Nation of Islam's leader, Elijah Muhammad. He had all these children out of wedlock who weren't being protected, that weren't being ostracized, weren't being supported. And then he was also concerned that, there was a lot of rivalry and jealousy because Malcolm X was the spokesperson for the nation. Elijah Muhammad was a leader. But for the white press, the mainstream press, Malcolm X was basically the leader because he was far more articulate and charismatic, okay? And that led to a lot of bitter acrimony. And he ended up breaking with them and joining sort of like normal mainstream Islam. And he also ended up breaking with their concept of a world where black people would live totally separately from whites, because he saw when he went on his Hajj, on his pilgrimage to Mecca, he saw that Islam was a multi-racial, international, multi-ethnic faith. So how could you be a Muslim and embrace a sort of racial supremacist thesis at the same time? You couldn't, according to his logic. And then you see the comparison in the poem here to Jesus, that he was on the side of working people, on the side of fighting for the oppressed, and they got him killed. He was betrayed by the Nation of Islam itself. They are the people who went to jail for his killing were affiliated or members of the Nation of Islam. It's a sad thing. But now there's all this speculation that maybe the federal government was involved instead. It's one of those things that's rife for conspiracy theorizing. All right, so I'll be back in a couple minutes to discuss. I'll be back with another video to discuss the wonderful poets June Jordan and Lucille Clifton.